"Uncle, don't eat! Don't eat! There's a bug! It stinks!" The 6-year-old girl's shrill scream shattered the silence of the Hawthorne estate like an alarm siren. Caleb, who was about to bring the fork to his mouth, froze. Before he could understand what was happening, a dry, violent crack echoed through the dining hall. Smack! Sloane, Caleb's fiancée, in a movement of blind rage, had risen from her chair and delivered a brutal slap to Penny's little hand, who was desperately pointing at the millionaire's plate. "You filthy brat!" Sloane shrieked, her face red with hatred, completely losing her composure as a society lady. "Who do you think you are to enter my dining hall?" Penny shrunk her small body, clutching her reddened little hand, and began to cry from pain and fright. "Ow! Mommy!" In the same second, a figure shot through the kitchen door. It was Sadie, the cleaner. She did not run. She flew. In a purely animal instinct of protection, Sadie threw herself onto the cold marble floor, skidding until she reached her daughter, hugging her with such force that her own bones ached. She placed her body as a human shield between the girl and the woman who looked like a devil in designer heels. "Don't hit her! For God's sake, Sloane, don't hit my daughter!" Sadie cried out, her voice choked with tears, feeling the girl's heart beat erratically against her chest. "She's just a child. She doesn't know what she's doing." Sloane was out of control. She kicked Sadie's leg, who was huddled on the floor. "Get this street trash and this bastard out of here now!" Sloane screamed, pointing at the door with a trembling hand, her perfect nails like claws. "You ruined my dinner. I warned you I didn't want a child in this house. Security! Get these two out of here and throw them on the sidewalk like the trash they are." At the head of the table, Caleb remained motionless. He looked like an ice sculpture. His dark glasses hid his eyes, and his hand still held the fork in the air, inches from his mouth. The sour smell from the plate turned his stomach, but the sound of that slap hurt far more. "Did you hear me, you worthless piece of trash?" Sloane continued screaming, humiliating Sadie in front of the staff who watched, terrified, from the kitchen. "Get out of my sight, and don't think you'll get a single cent for the days you worked. I'm calling the staffing agency and telling them you stole, so you'll never get another job in this city." Sadie was sobbing, clutching her daughter, feeling the weight of injustice crushing her shoulders. How had they reached that point? All she wanted was to work, to earn an honest living. But there she was, thrown to the floor at the feet of a cruel woman, being treated worse than an animal. To understand how that dinner turned into a nightmare, we need to go back in time. Just 7 days earlier, Sadie's life was already hanging by a thread. It was a grey and rainy Monday. The rain beat against the window of the staffing agency as if the sky was crying along with Sadie. She was sitting on a hard plastic bench, clutching the strap of her worn purse. Beside her, Penny swung her short legs, drawing on a scrap of paper with the stub of a pencil that Sadie had sharpened with a kitchen knife. "Mom, my stomach's growling like a beast," the girl whispered, leaning her head on her mother's arm. Sadie felt a stab in her chest. She only had enough money for the return fare. In her purse, there was half a pack of saltine crackers, soggy from the humidity. She took out 2 crackers and handed them to her daughter, trying to smile, but her eyes were sad. "Eat slowly, my love. Tame the beast. Mommy will get this job today, I promise. And we'll stop by the corner bakery and buy that rotisserie chicken, okay? The really golden brown one." Penny's eyes lit up. The promise of a rotisserie chicken was like the promise of treasure. "Sadie Brooks," called the receptionist with a bored voice. Sadie entered the interview room trembling. The recruiter didn't even look at her, just flipped through the coffee-stained application. The position was for a cleaner at a mansion in the wealthiest neighborhood in the city. The salary was triple the usual, but there was a warning in bold block letters on the application: high turnover, patience required. No one lasted more than a week in that house. "Do you have experience in high-end homes?" the man asked without interest. "Yes, sir, I do. I clean very well. I'm fast, discreet. I cook, Wash, iron. I can do the work of 3 if needed. I really need this job, sir. I'm a widow. My husband, Travis, passed away in a motorcycle accident 2 years ago, and it's just me and my daughter. The rent is overdue. If I don't pay today—" The man sighed and finally looked at her. He saw the desperation in the eyes of that young, beautiful woman worn out by life. "The problem is the lady of the house. Sloane Montgomery is complicated. And the master, Caleb Hawthorne, is an invalid. He went blind in an accident 2 years ago. He's depressed, bitter. There can't be any noise in the house, and there's a non-negotiable rule: no children allowed." Sadie's world crumbled. The neighborhood daycare had been on strike for 2 weeks due to the city's failure to pay. The kind neighbor who sometimes watched Penny had traveled upstate to care for her sick mother. Sadie had no one. But she looked at the door, where her daughter was hungrily eating stale crackers, and made a desperate decision. The decision of a mother with no other choice. "I have someone to leave her with, yes, sir. My Aunt Ruth lives nearby. You can count on it. Do I start tomorrow?" It was a lie, a dangerous lie, but hunger doesn't accept truths. The next day, Sadie arrived at the Hawthorne estate. It was a fortress, high walls, cameras, golden gates. She entered through the service entrance, with her heart in her throat, holding Penny's hand so tightly that the girl's fingers turned white. She crouched in front of her daughter before entering the kitchen. "Honey, look at Mommy. Now we're going to play spy. You're an invisible ninja. You'll stay in this little corner of the pantry, very quietly. No one can see you. No one can hear you. If you show yourself, the wicked witch will get us, and the roasted chicken will disappear." "Understood?" Penny, with her big, intelligent eyes, nodded very seriously. "I'm a ninja, Mommy. No one will see me." The first person Sadie encountered was Sloane. She floated down the stairs in a pink silk robe that cost more than all the furniture in Sadie's house combined. She was beautiful, but she had an expression like she was smelling something foul all the time. "Are you the new one?" Sloane asked, looking Sadie up and down with disdain, turning up her nose at the cleaner's simple clothes. "The uniform is over there. If I see a speck of dust, you're out. And do not speak to Caleb Hawthorne unless he asks you something. He's blind and insufferable. He hates chatterboxes. Oh, and if you break anything, I'll take it out of your hide, because your salary won't cover it." Sadie swallowed her pride, nodded, and began her work. The house was enormous, cold, and lifeless. It seemed like a gilded cage. It was in the study that Sadie first saw Caleb. He was sitting in a leather armchair, facing the closed window. The heavy curtains were drawn, leaving the room in dim light. He gripped a white cane so tightly that his knuckles were livid. "Excuse me, Caleb Hawthorne," Sadie said, her voice soft, trying not to startle him. "I'll just clean up here quickly." He did not respond. He only turned his face slightly toward the voice. Sadie felt a tightness in her chest. The sadness emanating from that man was almost solid. He seemed to have given up on living. She began to clean, moving like a feather. As she wiped the mahogany table, she saw a picture frame turned face down. Curious, she turned it over. It was a photo of Caleb smiling before his blindness, seated at the piano. He looked like a different person, full of light. "Leave that as it was." His voice sounded hoarse, deep, coming from the shadows. Sadie jumped in surprise and quickly turned the photo back. "I apologize, sir. You have a very beautiful smile in the photo." Caleb let out a bitter sound, which seemed like a broken laugh. "The man in the photo died the day his eyes went dark." Sadie finished cleaning in silence, but before leaving, she saw that he was shivering from the cold. The air conditioning was on full blast. In an impulse of maternal kindness, she took a wool blanket that was on the sofa, and with great care not to touch him, covered her boss's legs. "Excuse me," she whispered, closing the door. Caleb remained motionless for a few seconds. No one did that for him in that house. Sloane used to turn up the air conditioning on purpose and leave, forgetting the remote control out of his reach. When the door latch clicked, Caleb did something no one expected. He opened his eyes. They were neither white nor dull. They were brown eyes, deep, focused, and attentive. Caleb looked at the closed door, looked at the blanket over his legs, and sighed, running his hand over his tired face. The secret Caleb Hawthorne was keeping weighed heavily on him. 15 days ago, he had traveled to the States under the pretense of visiting a specialist in blind adaptation. But he had gone to undergo experimental stem cell corneal transplant surgery, and it had worked. When the doctor removed the bandages, the light returned. Caleb Hawthorne cried like a child. He returned to the Hawthorne estate, euphoric, his heart bursting with love, wanting to surprise Sloane Montgomery. He entered the house silently, wanting to embrace his fiancée from behind. But as he approached the study, he heard her voice. She was on the phone, laughing. "Of course I'm going to have him committed, darling," Sloane Montgomery said, her voice cold and calculating. "As soon as we get married next week and I get full guardianship, I'll dump that useless blind man in a luxury-assisted living facility and we'll enjoy the inheritance in Paris. Nobody can stand him. He's dead weight. He's only good for signing checks." In that moment, Caleb died inside. The pain was worse than the blindness. He recoiled in shock, and he decided right then he would remain blind. He needed to know how far her wickedness went. He needed concrete proof so he wouldn't lose half of his empire in a divorce. And deep down, he was afraid. Afraid of discovering that no one in the world truly loved him. But the charade came at a high price. During that week, Sadie worked in the house. Caleb saw things that turned his stomach. He saw Sloane swapping his blood pressure medication for flour pills. He saw her deliberately kicking his cane away, just to watch him desperately grope the floor, while she filmed him with her cell phone to send to her lover, holding back laughter. But he also saw Sadie. He saw, through the corners of his half-closed eyes, how she cleaned the floor on her knees until it shined. He saw how she looked at him with genuine compassion, not pity. And on the third day, he discovered Sadie's secret. Caleb Hawthorne was in the garden, sitting on the stone bench, pretending to listen to nature. He heard light footsteps on the grass. They were not Sloane Montgomery's heavy, high-heeled steps. They were a child's footsteps. "Hi, giant," a thin, curious voice said. Caleb almost smiled, but kept a neutral expression. "Who's there?" "I'm Penny, the invisible spy, but Mommy's cleaning the bathroom upstairs, so I snuck away for a bit." "You're really big." "Is that why you wear superhero glasses?" Caleb felt a lump in his throat. The innocence in that voice broke down his defenses. "I wear glasses because my eyes have a boo-boo," he replied, playing along. "Oh," Penny seemed to think. She approached and touched his knee. "The garden is pretty today. There's a flower here that's the color of my mommy's laugh." "What color is your mommy's laugh?" Caleb asked, genuinely charmed. "Yellow. Really bright yellow, like the sun when it's hot. And there's another one that's red like tomato sauce. Do you want to hold it?" Penny placed a velvety flower in his hand. Caleb, who could perfectly see the vibrant red flower, felt warm tears stream down from behind his dark sunglasses. That little girl, the cleaner's daughter who earned minimum wage, had given him more attention and affection in 5 minutes than his fiancée had in 2 years. "Thank you, Penny," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Uncle, don't tell anyone I'm here, okay? The witch, Sloane Montgomery. She doesn't like kids. She has a face like she sucked on a lemon." Caleb almost laughed out loud. It was the perfect description. "Your secret is safe with me, little spy." From that day forward, Caleb began to live for those brief moments. The presence of Sadie and Penny brought color back to the grey mansion. But Sloane's malice knew no bounds, and the final confrontation arrived that Friday night. Sloane decided to prepare a romantic dinner. She said she would dismiss the cook to prepare something special with her own hands. Caleb, suspicious, silently followed her to the kitchen and peeked through the crack in the door. What he saw made his blood boil. Sloane was at the counter, laughing to herself like a madwoman. She took an old bowl from the back of the refrigerator, containing 3-day-old risotto leftovers that were already molding. The smell was horrible. "Here's your special dinner, my darling," she sneered, pouring the slop onto a golden plate. Not satisfied, she went to the trash can, picked up an old brown banana peel, and rubbed it along the edge of the plate. Then, in an act of pure malice, she spat on the food and mixed everything together. "Eat it all, you useless blind man. Maybe you'll catch an infection and die soon, so I can become a widow earlier." Meanwhile, in the oven, a fresh, fragrant lobster was ready for her. Sadie, who was finishing washing the utility room floor, entered the kitchen to put away the bucket and saw the scene. She saw Sloane spitting. Sadie froze, bringing her hand to her mouth in horror. Sloane turned and saw the cleaner. Her smile vanished. "What did you see?" hissed Sloane, advancing. "Mrs. Montgomery, this food, Caleb will get sick." "This is a sin, ma'am," stammered Sadie. Sloane grabbed Sadie's arm tightly, digging her nails into her flesh. "Listen here, you starving wretch. If you open that filthy mouth, I'll tell the police that you stole my diamond ring. I'll plant it in your bag right now. Who do you think Chief Rourke will listen to? The future Mrs. Hawthorne, or the cleaner who secretly brought her bleary-eyed daughter?" Sadie trembled. The fear of jail, of losing her daughter, paralyzed her. I didn't see anything, ma'am." "Fine. Go to the pantry with the bastard and stay there until I tell you to come out." Sadie ran, pulling Penny, crying from helplessness. But Penny was smart. Penny had heard everything through the half-open door, and the girl did not understand threats or the police. She only understood that the giant uncle was going to eat food with spit and bugs. When Sloane took the plates to the dining hall, Penny took advantage of her mother's lapse and escaped. And so we return to the present moment, to the scream, to the slap, to the chaos. Sloane continued screaming at the invisible security guards, trying to grab the phone. Sadie remained on the floor, protecting her daughter. Caleb felt something break inside him. It was not sadness. It was the dam of patience finally bursting. That woman had crossed all human limits. She had assaulted the only purity left in that house. Caleb dropped his fork onto the plate. The sound of metal hitting porcelain was dry, definitive. Clang. "Enough!" His voice boomed like thunder, so deep and powerful that it made the walls tremble. Sloane stopped screaming, startled, dropping the phone to the floor. Sadie looked up, her eyes swollen. Caleb braced his hands on the table and stood up, but he did not rise tentatively, unsure as he had for 2 years. He rose with the posture of a king, reclaiming his crown and sword. With his right hand he reached for his face. In a slow, deliberate and terrifying movement for Sloane, he removed his sunglasses and threw them onto the table. Sloane recoiled a step, her breath caught in her throat. She looked into Caleb's eyes, and for the first time in 2 years, his eyes were fixed on hers. They did not wander aimlessly. They stared at her with deadly focus, gleaming with fury. The silence in the room was absolute. Even the air seemed to have stilled. Penny stopped crying, looking fascinated at the superhero. Caleb walked around the table. He did not use his cane. He perfectly avoided the chair. He avoided the rug. He walked straight, like a predator, until he was an inch from Sloane's face, who was white as a sheet, trembling from head to toe. Caleb? She stammered, her voice fading. You... Caleb grabbed Sloane's wrist, the same one that had hit Penny. He squeezed, firm, showing his strength. "I saw it, Sloane," he said, his voice low, vibrating with contained rage. "I saw you spitting on my plate. I saw you taking food from the trash. I saw you swapping my medication. I saw you laughing with your lover on the phone, planning my death." Sloane tried to pull her arm away in total panic. "No, that's a lie. You're hallucinating, darling. It's a miracle your sight is back now. I would never—" "And I saw you hit a child," Caleb roared, cutting off her lie, his voice rising. "You raised your hand to a 6-year-old girl who was only trying to protect me from your rottenness." He released her arm in disgust, as if he had touched toxic waste. Sloane stumbled backward. "It's over. Get your things and get out of my house. Now." "You can't do this!" Sloane screamed, despair taking over, her fake tears starting to fall. "We're getting married. I took care of you for 2 years. This house is mine too." "You took care of me?" Caleb laughed, a dry sound. "You tortured me. And this house is mine. You signed a prenuptial agreement, remember? You thought the blind man would die soon. Too bad for you. I'm very much alive, and seeing every inch of your filthy soul." Sloane looked around, cornered. Her eyes fell on Sadie, who was still on the floor, perplexed. Sloane's hatred found a target. "It was her!" Sloane pointed, hysterical. "That cleaner put a hex on you. She put things in your head. She and that cursed girl planned everything." Caleb turned to Sadie. His expression of rage vanished, replaced by a tenderness Sloane had never seen. He extended his hand to the cleaner. "Get up, Sadie, please." Sadie, trembling, held his firm hand and stood up, pulling Penny close to her skirt. "Caleb, I'm sorry, I didn't want to cause trouble. I swear." "You didn't cause trouble. You saved me," Caleb said, looking deeply into Sadie's eyes, and then smiling at Penny. "You were my eyes when I pretended to have none. You two were the only truth in this house of lies." He looked back at Sloane, who was already backing toward the door, realizing she had lost control over her victim. "Get out!" Caleb yelled, pointing to the main exit. "And if you take so much as a pin from this house, I'll call the police and hand over the security camera recordings I installed in my office last week. I have everything recorded, Sloane. The adultery, the poisoning, the abuse. Do you want to find out?" Sloane stopped at the door. The hatred in her eyes was palpable. She no longer seemed human. "You will regret this, Caleb," she hissed, her voice laden with pure venom. "Do you think you've won? You're emotionally crippled, and you—" She glared at Sadie. "Enjoy your minutes of glory, you bottom-tier cleaner, because I will turn your lives into a living hell. You don't know who you've messed with." Sloane slammed the door with such force that the crystal chandelier on the ceiling swayed. Silence returned to the room, but now it was the silence of relief. Caleb took a deep breath, running his hand through his hair, trembling from the adrenaline rush. He looked at the plate of spoiled food on the table and felt nauseous. Then he looked down at Penny, who was watching him with adoration. "Are you a real superhero?" the girl asked softly. Caleb knelt on the floor, getting down to her level, ignoring his expensive Italian suit. "No, little one, I'm just a man who was lost in the dark, and you lit the way for me." He looked at Sadie, who was still crying silently, relieved but scared of the future. "Sadie," he said gently, "are you too hungry?" Sadie nodded, unable to speak. Caleb stood up, picked up the lobster plate that would have been Sloane's and was untouched and steaming at the other end of the table. "Sit down, please. Tonight, dinner is ours." While Sadie sat timidly at a Millionaire's table, outside under the torrential rain, Sloane got into her sports car. She was not crying. Her face was twisted into a macabre smile. She picked up her cell phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. "Hello, Rourke?" she said into the phone, her voice cold as ice. "The plan has changed. The blind man has regained his sight. But he made a grave mistake. He grew fond of the cleaner's daughter. I want you to destroy that woman. I want her in jail this week. We'll see if Caleb remains so brave when his girlfriend is arrested as a common criminal." Sloane sped up the car, tires squealing, disappearing into the dark night, leaving behind a promise of war that was just beginning. The rain outside had lessened to a fine, icy drizzle, but inside the Hawthorne estate The air hung heavy like lead. Caleb watched Sadie and Penny sitting at that enormous dining table. Both their eyes were red and swollen. He felt a deep shame that burned his face. Caleb Hawthorne, 36 years old, owner of half the city's commercial properties, a man who controlled empires, had needed to be saved by a 6-year-old girl and a cleaner he barely knew. "Please eat," Caleb said, shattering the silence, pushing the untouched lobster platter closer to Penny. "It's warm, and I guarantee on my life that no one spit in this one." Penny looked at her mother, her pleading eyes waiting for permission. A child's hunger doesn't understand tragedies. It just hurts. Sadie, still with trembling hands in her lap, nodded slowly. "You can eat, daughter." Penny picked up a piece of bread and bit into it eagerly. Sadie, however, could not even swallow her saliva. She looked around at the paintings by famous artists, at the crystal chandelier worth more than her entire house, and felt like an intruder in a dangerous world. "Mr. Hawthorne," her voice was a mere whisper, hoarse from crying. "I appreciate the food. I appreciate you defending us from that woman, but I need to leave now." Caleb frowned. "Leave? It's raining, Sadie. If Mrs. Montgomery comes back..." Sadie shivered. "She said she would ruin my life." "You heard her. People like her don't make empty threats. I'm just a cleaner, sir. The little guy always gets the short end of the stick. It's better if I disappear. I'll get my things and go to Aunt Ruth's house upstate." Caleb rose abruptly from his chair. The noise startled Sadie. He walked to the other side of the table and, in a gesture that made her heart stop, knelt on the cold floor, bringing himself to Penny's level. "Penny," he said, with a gentleness that didn't match the angry man from minutes before. He brushed a sweaty strand of hair from the girl's face. "Do you know how to apologize when you do something wrong?" "Yes, I do," the girl replied, her mouth messy with lobster sauce. "Mommy says sorry is a band-aid for the heart." Caleb smiled, a sad smile, but one that reached his brown eyes. "Your mother is a very wise woman, so I wanted to apologize to you. I was a coward. I let that witch live here and scare you. I was weak. But I promise you, looking into your eye, that no one will ever lay a hand on you in this house again, not on you, nor on your mother. Do you forgive me, little spy?" Penny stopped chewing. She looked deep into his eyes, as if evaluating the giant's soul. "You're forgiven, Uncle. But you have to share the dessert." Caleb laughed. It was a short laugh, rusty from disuse, but genuine. He stood up and faced Sadie. "Sadie, I can't let you leave here. Not today." "But, sir..." "Listen. Sloane is vindictive. If you leave here now, alone, in the rain, without protection, I don't know what she might do. She has contacts, she has money, she has bad people on her payroll. In here, with my 13-foot walls and my cameras, you're safe." "I have nowhere to sleep here, sir. I can't sleep on the living room couch." "I have a proposition," Caleb said seriously. "The housekeeper, Mrs. Higgins, resigned last week because she couldn't stand Sloane's yelling anymore. The guest house at the back of the grounds is empty. It's a complete house, bedroom, living room, kitchen. I want you to live there with Penny." Sadie's eyes widened. "Live here? As charity?" "It's not charity, it's work. I need someone I can trust, Sadie. Someone who won't try to poison me, someone who won't steal, someone who saved me when I didn't deserve it. I'll pay triple what the staffing agency offered. Full employment contract, health insurance for both of you. And Penny can play in the garden as much as she wants. There's a swing set in the back that's rusting." Sadie felt dizzy. The offer was the salvation for her financial problems, but the fear of Sloane still paralyzed her. "I only asked for one thing in return," Caleb added, his voice faltering slightly. "What?" "That you don't leave me alone in this darkness again." Caleb took off the sunglasses he had picked up from the table and put them in his pocket. "You two were the only real thing that happened in my life in 2 years. If you leave, the house will die again. Please, stay." Sadie looked at her daughter, who was eating happily and safely. She looked at Caleb, who, despite his Italian suit, seemed like a lonely boy begging for company, and a mother's heart, which always knows where truth lies, spoke loudest. "We'll stay, Caleb, but only until the dust settles." Caleb sighed, releasing air he hadn't realized he was holding. "Thank you, Sadie. You won't regret it." That night, for the first time in a long while, the lights of the Hawthorne estate remained on late. The house breathed. Meanwhile, across town, the atmosphere was suffocating. In a presidential suite at a five-star hotel, Sloane was pacing like a caged tiger. The carpet was stained with wine she had thrown against the wall in a fit of rage. The door opened and a man entered. Tall, grey-haired, with the arrogance of someone who carries a gun on his hip and the law in his pocket. It was Chief Rourke, Sloane's lover and a silent partner in her schemes. "You took too long," Sloane yelled, spinning on her heels. "I had to shake the watch at the precinct, my angel. What was that scandal on the phone? Did the wedding plan go down the drain?" Sloane lit a cigarette, her hands trembling with hatred. The wedding, the inheritance, the conservatorship. Everything. "The damn blind man can see again, Rourke." The chief stopped smiling. "What?" "He regained his sight and didn't tell anyone. He faked blindness all week. That bastard saw everything. He saw the rotten food. He saw me hitting Penny. He threw me out. And the worst part, he said he has recordings." Rourke frowned, concerned. "Recordings?" "He installed cameras in the office and the living room. If he has audio of us talking about the conservatorship, or video of me switching the medication, I'll go to jail for attempted murder, Rourke, and you'll go down with me." The chief sat in the armchair, calculating. "Easy. We can dispute the video, say it's a fabrication, a deep fake, all that modern tech stuff. The problem is his credibility. If he testifies now, with that comeback story, the judge will be eating out of the palm of his hand. Then we destroy his credibility." Sloane flicked her cigarette ash onto the floor. "He's unstable. We can say it's a breakdown, but the problem is he's not alone. The cleaner, that Sadie, she stayed there. The eyewitness." "Exactly. Caleb is smitten with her. He's eating out of the palm of that poor woman's hand. As long as she's there, he has emotional support. He feels strong." Rourke smiled, a shark smile smelling blood. "Then we remove his foundation. We take his girlfriend out of the picture. If Caleb is alone again, isolated in that estate, desperate, he'll break. He'll beg you to come back and take care of him. And how do we get her out of there?" He locked the gates, changed the passwords. Chief Rourke stood up, walked over to Sloane and hugged her from behind, watching their reflection in the mirror. "Do you still have that diamond necklace, the Riviera, that we reported stolen last month to collect the insurance money?" Sloane widened her eyes and smiled, understanding the plan. "It's in the safe here at the hotel." "Excellent. It's the perfect evidence, not tomorrow to avoid suspicion. Let them relax, let them think they've won. In 2 days, I'll make an official visit. And I promise you, my love, that Cleaner will leave there in handcuffs, straight to a filthy cell, and Caleb will be so devastated seeing his beloved arrested as a thief that he'll be eating out of your palm again." The 2 days that followed were, ironically, the happiest that estate had ever seen. The guest house, which before was just a storage for old furniture, came to life. Sadie cleaned, aired out, placed flowers picked from the garden. It smelled like home. Caleb rediscovered his own home. He no longer needed to feel his way along the walls. He walked with confidence, but always looked for where Sadie was. On a golden, sunny afternoon, Sadie was hanging clothes on the makeshift clothesline behind the guest house. She heard laughter and stopped. On the lawn, Caleb was chasing Penny. The man who once barely left his armchair was now sweating through his shirt, stumbling on the grass, laughing loudly. "I'm going to get you, you little spy," he shouted. "No way! You run like a duck, giant!" Penny teased. Caleb caught the girl and spun her in the air. The sound of Penny's laughter filled Sadie's heart with a peace she hadn't felt since Travis died. She found herself admiring Caleb, not his money, but the man. His affectionate manner, his patience, the sparkle in his eyes that had returned. "Don't fool yourself, Sadie," she thought, reprimanding herself. "He's the boss. You're the employee. This is a fairy tale that has an expiration date." But it was hard not to get her hopes up when, that night, Caleb appeared at the guest house door with pizza ingredients. "I don't know how to cook very well," he confessed, with flour on his nose. "But I know how to make a dough my grandma taught me. Can I have dinner with you? The main house is too big and quiet." Sadie smiled and opened the door. "Only if you promise not to mess up my whole kitchen. I promise to try. And stop calling me sir. I'm Caleb." The night was magical. They made pizza, laughed at the mess, and ate sitting on the rug in the small living room. Penny fell asleep with her head in Caleb's lap, trusting him completely. When Sadie picked up her daughter to take her to bed, Caleb stood up to help. They stood by the girl's bedroom door, under the soft glow of the nightlight. "Thank you, Sadie," Caleb whispered. He was very close. The scent of his cologne mixed with the smell of bread dough was intoxicating. "I thought my life was over when I lost my sight, but I think I only truly started to see when you arrived." Sadie felt her face burn. She looked up into his brown eyes. "You are a good man, Caleb. You deserve to be happy." Caleb raised his hand and hesitantly touched Sadie's face. His thumb caressed her cheek. Sadie's heart pounded like a drum. The world stopped. He leaned his face slightly. The kiss was imminent, desired, electric. But trauma spoke louder. Sadie took a step back, startled by the intensity, startled by the social chasm between them. It's late, Caleb." Caleb blinked, coming out of his trance, and respectfully withdrew his hand. "Of course. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. Good night, Sadie." "Good night." He left, walking through the dark grounds back to the lonely estate. Sadie stood at the window, watching him leave, with a heavy heart. She wanted that kiss, but she was afraid that dream would turn into a nightmare. She did not know that the nightmare was already set and scheduled to arrive. The next morning dawned cloudy. The sky was lead-grey, promising a storm. It was 10 in the morning. The routine seemed established. Caleb was in the study of the main estate, reviewing with his attorney the dissolution of the domestic partnership agreement. Sadie was in the guest house, organizing Penny's toys. Suddenly, the estate intercom rang, persistently. And then, the sound that chills the blood of any honest person, sirens, and violent banging on the gate. "Open up! Police!" Caleb ran to the living room, startled. The intercom screen showed squad cars. "What is happening?" he murmured. Before he could react, the pedestrian gate was forced open, or someone had the master key. 4 armed officers entered the grounds, led by a man who walked as if he owned the world. Chief Rourke. Caleb stepped out onto the balcony. "What kind of invasion is this? Who are you?" Rourke smiled, adjusting the badge on his belt. "Good morning, Mr. Caleb Hawthorne. We have a serious anonymous tip and an urgent search and seizure warrant." "A search for what? There are no criminals here." Caleb was indignant. "The tip states that a household employee, Sadie Brooks, stole an invaluable piece of jewelry from your former fiancé, Sloane Montgomery, a diamond Riviera necklace." At that moment, Sadie emerged from the guest house, attracted by the commotion, holding Penny's hand. Upon seeing the police, she froze. "There she is," Rourke pointed. "Apprehend the suspect." 2 officers ran toward Sadie. "Hey, don't touch her," shouted Caleb, running down the stairs. "That's a lie. It's Sloane's setup." Chief Rourke blocked Caleb's path, shoving him hard in the chest. "Hold on there, sir. You don't want to be arrested for contempt and obstruction, do you? We're upholding the law. We're going to search the suspect's quarters." "I didn't take anything," cried Sadie, crying, hugging Penny, who was already sobbing in fear. "Caleb, for heaven's sake! We're going to search the guest house," ordered Chief Rourke. "I'm coming with you," demanded Caleb. "You'll stay here contained. Security procedure," lied Chief Rourke, signaling for an officer to hold Caleb in the garden. Chief Rourke entered the guest house with another officer and dragged Sadie along. Penny tried to enter, but was blocked at the door, screaming for her mother. Inside, away from Caleb's eyes, the charade unfolded. Chief Rourke began to violently ransack Sadie's drawers. He threw simple clothes onto the floor, kicked shoes around. "Where is it? Confess now, and your sentence will be lighter," Chief Rourke taunted. "I don't have anything, I swear," Sadie Brooks sobbed. Chief Rourke walked over to Sadie Brooks' old purse, which was hanging on a chair. He turned his back to her for a second. With the skill of a pickpocket, he took the velvet box from his own pocket and slipped it into the open purse. Well, what do we have here?" He turned around, triumphant, pulling the diamond necklace from inside Sadie Brooks' purse. The jewel gleamed in the dim light of the room, accusatory. "Caught red-handed. Grand larceny. Breach of trust." "No!" Sadie Brooks screamed in shock. "You put that in there! I saw you, Caleb!" "Quiet, thief. Handcuff her." The officer pulled Sadie Brooks' arms behind her brutally. The cold click of the metal closing on her wrists was the sound of the end of the world. Chief Rourke dragged Sadie Brooks out of the guest house, displaying the necklace to Caleb Hawthorne like a trophy. "We found it, Mr. Hawthorne. It was in her purse. The tip was hot." "That's planted!" Caleb yelled, struggling in the arms of the officer holding him. "You put that there! I know it was you!" "Watch your accusations, Playboy. The material evidence is irrefutable. Take her to the precinct." "Mommy!" Penny ran and clung to her handcuffed mother's legs. "Daughter!" Sadie cried desperately. "Caleb, take care of her. Don't let them take her to the shelter. Get this child out of here," Chief Rourke ordered. An officer ripped Penny from her mother's legs and pushed her. The girl fell onto the grass, scraping her knee. Caleb saw everything. The push, the handcuffs. Chief Rourke's cynical smile. His blood boiled, but he realized that fighting physically there would only make everything worse. He needed to be smart. The patrol car left, taking Sadie, who looked back through the rear window with an expression of absolute terror. The gate closed. Silence returned, broken only by Penny's convulsive sobbing as she lay on the grass. Chief Rourke had left, believing he had won. Believing Caleb Hawthorne was just a foolish blind man who had regained his sight but remained naive. Chief Rourke, in his arrogance, did not even bother to look for cameras in the guest house. After all, it was just a staff dwelling. He had only checked the external cameras of the estate and knew the angles did not capture the interior of the small building. But he underestimated Caleb Hawthorne. Caleb Hawthorne ran to Penny, picked the girl up, and hugged her tightly, staining his expensive suit with dirt and tears. "It's over, my love. I'm here. I promise. They took Mommy, Giant." "The witch won," the girl sobbed. Caleb Hawthorne stood up with the girl in his arms. His eyes were dry, focused, cold as ice. "No, Penny, the witch didn't win. She only dug her own grave." Caleb Hawthorne strode towards the guest house where the search had taken place. He entered the messy room, with Sadie Brooks' clothes scattered across the floor. He went straight to a tall bookshelf where an old teddy bear Penny had left was sitting. Caleb picked up the bear. He turned it over and opened an almost invisible zipper in the seam. From inside the stuffing, Caleb pulled out a spy micro-camera, the size of a die. He had installed it the day they moved in, not to spy on them, but because he knew that Sloane was capable of invading that place to harm them. It was his security paranoia taking over, and now it was his salvation. The little red light was blinking. It had battery power. It had recorded. Caleb visualized the scene. The bookshelf's angle captured the entire room. It captured the bag on the chair. And it would capture, in high definition and with audio, the exact moment when Chief Rourke took the jewelry from his own pocket and planted it in Sadie's bag. Caleb clutched the micro camera in his hand with such force that his knuckles turned white. "You made a mistake, Rourke," Caleb whispered to the empty room. "You forgot that I spent 2 years in the dark learning to hear what no one says and to see what no one shows." He looked at Penny, who was watching him curiously, wiping away her tears. "Come on, little one. Let's go get your mother, and we're going to take them all down." Caleb picked up the phone and dialed his criminal lawyer. "Hello, Attorney Vance? Prepare the habeas corpus and call the district attorney. I have the video of the arrest they fabricated. It's showtime." The smell was the first thing that assaulted the senses, a mixture of rusted iron, mold, sour sweat, and human despair. Sadie Brooks was huddled in the corner of a cell that should have held 4 women, but that night held 12. The floor was cold, damp concrete. She hugged her knees, trying to make herself small, invisible, blending into the shadows, exactly as she had taught Penny to do in the pantry of the estate. The brutal difference was that, there in that hell, there was no giant to save her. "Hey, rookie," a hoarse voice came from a woman with a scar on her face, sitting on the top bunk. "Why are you shaking? What did the lady do? What did you steal?" Sadie Brooks shivered. She was still wearing her cleaner's uniform, now dirty with soil and crumpled from the brutality of the jail. She felt the predatory stares of the other inmates on her. "I didn't steal anything," she whispered, not daring to lift her eyes. "It was a setup. Chief Rourke, he planted a jewel in my bag." A collective, dry, joyless laugh filled the cell. "Everyone says that, honey," the woman with the scar sneered. "There are no guilty ones in here. Everyone's a saint until the judge bangs the gavel and gives you 5 years in a cage. Get ready, cleaner. The first night is the worst. The cold seeps into your bones, and the longing tears at your soul." Sadie closed her eyes tightly, trying to block out the sound of their laughter. A warm, solitary tear rolled down her dirty face. The image of Penny being pushed onto the wet grass with a scraped knee, screaming, "Mommy!" played on a loop in her head like a horror movie. Her fear wasn't of the jail, nor of the other inmates, nor of the sour food they had thrown under the bars. Her fear was losing her daughter. Her fear was Child Protective Services knocking on the door of the Hawthorne estate and taking her girl to a shelter because her mother was jailed as a thief. "Caleb promised," she repeated mentally, moving her lips in silence, like a desperate prayer. He promised he would take care of her, but the cruel and insidious doubt gnawed at her hope. Caleb was a rich man, a boss. Rich men forget promises made to cleaners as soon as the door closes. Would he really fight for her against a police chief and a powerful socialite, or had he by then already started to doubt? Did he look at the necklace in the chief's hand and think, "I trusted her and she stole from me"? Time in jail does not pass. It drags, heavy. Every minute felt like an hour. Night fell outside, turning the small grate high on the wall into a black square. Sadie did not sleep. She stayed watching the darkness, praying that her daughter was safe, warm, and by some miracle able to sleep. While Sadie suffered in the cold of the cell at the Hawthorne estate, the atmosphere was not one of forgetting. It was one of war. Caleb had not left his office, not even for a drink of water. The solid mahogany desk, once organized, was now covered with papers, additional monitors, and untouched coffee cups. In the corner, on the wide leather sofa, Penny slept a restless sleep, covered with Caleb's Italian linen jacket. He adamantly refused to hand her over to a nanny or to social services. "She stays with me," he had roared at his attorney hours earlier. "Nobody takes this girl from this house until her mother returns." Each time the girl stirred in her sleep, and quietly sobbed, calling for her mother. Caleb's hatred for Sloane and Rourke intensified. It was no longer anger. It was a cold, calculating, dangerous fury. On the large computer screen, the hidden camera video was paused at the crucial moment. It was the victory frame. Chief Rourke's hand emerging from his jacket pocket, holding the small blue velvet box exactly 1 second before slipping it into Sadie Brooks's bag. The 4K spy camera footage was crystal clear. You could even see the class ring on the chief's finger. There was no doubt. There was no deep fake. There was no possible defense. It was a blatant crime committed by a police authority, recorded in high definition. Caleb's phone rang on the table. It was the direct line he kept open. "Caleb!" Attorney Vance's voice, his criminal lawyer, sounded grave and urgent. "I'm leaving the duty judge's chambers now. The district attorney is with me on the secure line. They watched the video." "So?" Caleb asked, his fingers drumming impatiently on the table. The district attorney was livid, Caleb. He recognized Rourke immediately. It seems the district attorney's office had been investigating Rourke for extortion and selling sentences for months, but they never had concrete evidence. "Your video isn't just proof of Sadie's innocence. It's the silver bullet they needed to bring down an entire corrupt scheme. I don't care about his career, Attorney Vance. Let him rot. I want to know about Sadie. When is she getting out? The judge just signed the release order and the dismissal of the investigation for fabricated evidence, and there's more. He issued a pre-trial arrest warrant for Chief Rourke to ensure public order and the proper conduct of the criminal investigation." Caleb let out the breath he had been holding, feeling his shoulders relax for the first time in 12 hours. "Great. I'm going to pick her up right now." "Wait, Caleb." The attorney hesitated. "We have a delicate tactical situation." "What?" "Federal agents and the district attorney are going to execute the warrant against Rourke at the precinct this morning. It's a surprise operation. If you show up there beforehand to pick up Sadie, you could alert Rourke, and he might try to escape or destroy evidence. We need the arrest to happen first." "And Sadie stays there, waiting?" "Just 1 more hour, Caleb. It's necessary. And there's another matter. The mastermind. Sloane." "Exactly. The video proves, without a shadow of a doubt, that Chief Rourke planted the jewelry. But the video has no audio of Sloane ordering him to do it. Chief Rourke is shrewd. He can take the fall alone, take the blame, and say he acted on his own to solve the case quickly, protecting Sloane in exchange for money or outside legal support." Caleb looked at Penny sleeping. He remembered the slap Sloane gave the girl. He remembered the rotten food. He remembered her arrogance when she was thrown out. She could not get away with it. If Sloane remained free, with the money and hatred she possessed, she would never leave Sadie and Penny in peace. "If Chief Rourke does not turn her in, does she walk free?" Caleb asked, his voice icy. "Probably. Without direct evidence of her ordering it, it is difficult to arrest the mastermind." Caleb narrowed his eyes. He looked at his own reflection in the dark window. He saw the man who pretended to be blind for a week to uncover the truth. He knew how to play that game. "I know how to get Sloane Montgomery," Caleb Hawthorne said. "She thinks I'm unstable. She thinks I'm an emotionally dependent fool who just lost everything. She thinks I'm alone and desperate." "What are you going to do?" "We're going to give her exactly what she wants to see. We're going to set the stage, Attorney Vance." "Caleb, be careful. This is dangerous." "I know. But she made the classic mistake of arrogant villains. She underestimated the victim's intelligence. Ensure Sadie Brooks is released and brought here safely, escorted by the district attorney as soon as Rourke is cuffed. Don't let anyone touch her. Meanwhile, I'll prepare Sloane Montgomery's reception." Caleb Hawthorne hung up the phone. He went to the couch, knelt, and kissed the sleeping girl's forehead. "Wake up, little spy," he whispered. "We're going to bring Mommy home." And then we're going to get the witch. At the precinct, the morning began with the smell of strong coffee and arrogance. Chief Rourke was in his private office, with his feet on the desk, laughing on the phone. "Don't worry, my love. The cleaner spent the night on the hard floor, alongside the city's worst inmates. Early this morning, I'll sign her transfer to the State Women's Correctional Facility. The treatment there is different." On the other end of the line, in the comfort of her hotel, Sloane laughed, triumphant. "Perfect, Rourke. Did Caleb call you?" "About 20 times. I had them say I was on external duty. He must be tearing his hair out." "Excellent. Now it's my turn. I already have the medical team ready here. We'll claim that Caleb had a violent psychotic break due to the trauma of his beloved's arrest. With him institutionalized and sedated in a maximum security psychiatric clinic, I'll assume temporary guardianship and asset management. And you, my dear, get your fat percentage. You're diabolical, Sloane. That's why I love you." I have to hang up. The ambulance is about to leave. I'll see you at the celebration. Chief Rourke hung up the phone, feeling like he owned the city. He adjusted his tie, looked at himself in the mirror, and yelled to the clerk, "Hey, bring the inmate from cell 3, that's Sadie. I want to get her confession statement before sending her to the correctional facility. I want to see her cry a little." Minutes later, Sadie was brought into the chief's office. She was pale, with deep, dark circles under her eyes that looked like bruises, and her uniform was filthy. But she wasn't crying. She walked in with her head held high, with a dignity that irritated the chief. "Sit down," Chief Rourke ordered, pointing to the metal chair bolted to the floor. Sadie sat down, her hands cuffed in front of her body. "So, Mrs. Sadie?" Chief Rourke smiled, twirling a gold pen between his fingers. "Did you have a pleasant night? Was the mattress soft?" Sadie remained silent. "Have you reconsidered?" he continued. "If you sign the confession now, I can speak with the judge to lighten your sentence. Say it was a moment of weakness, that you saw the sparkle of the diamond and poverty spoke louder. It's a sympathetic story. The judge will take pity." Sadie raised her eyes and stared at the chief. "I won't sign any lies. You know you put that jewelry in my bag. You know I'm innocent. God sees everything you do." Rourke let out a dry laugh. "God doesn't testify in court, my dear. I'm in charge here. I am the law, and I have the evidence, the arrest, and the witness. You'll rot in jail for 5 years. And do you know what will happen to your daughter?" The mention of her daughter made Sadie's mask of strength crack. Her lip trembled. "Please, don't mess with my daughter. The adoption system is cruel, Sadie. A pretty little girl, daughter of a convict. Who knows where she'll end up? Just sign the damn thing." Chief Rourke shoved the paper and pen in front of her violently. At that moment, the door to the chief's office did not open. It was kicked in. "Federal agents, nobody move!" Chief Rourke jumped from his chair, spilling hot coffee on his shirt. "What the hell? Who dares to burst into my... like this?" 4 tactical agents with rifles and heavy vests stormed the office. Behind them, a man in a grey suit entered with a grave expression. "Chief Rourke?" the man asked, showing a red official ID. "I am the district attorney. You are under arrest." Chief Rourke turned as white as a sheet. "Arrested? This is absurd. I am the highest authority here. On what charge?" "Procedural fraud, racketeering, malicious prosecution, abuse of power, and passive corruption." The district attorney signaled, "Agents, cuff him, and confiscate his cell phone and weapon now." Chief Rourke tried to back away, stammering, looking for an exit. "You have no proof. It is the word of a thieving cleaner against that of a career chief. You will regret this." "No, Rourke," said the district attorney, with palpable contempt. "It is not her word. It is the image from a hidden 4K camera against your stupidity. You were filmed planting the evidence. The show is over. Federal agents restrained Rourke. He was handcuffed with his hands behind his back, shouting empty threats as he was pushed against the wall, exactly as he did with suspects. The district attorney turned to Sadie. She watched everything, paralyzed, tears finally streaming down, unsure if it was real or a delirium from prison fever. An agent approached and gently unlocked Sadie's handcuffs. "Mrs. Sadie," the district attorney's voice softened, "I apologize on behalf of the state for what you have endured. The judge issued your immediate release order. You are free, and you are innocent." Sadie rubbed her marked wrists. She watched Chief Rourke being dragged out, humiliated. Then she looked at the district attorney. "And my daughter?" was the only thing she managed to ask. "She's fine. Mr. Caleb Hawthorne sent his legal team to take her back home. Come, my team will escort you. Nothing will happen to you." Sadie stood up. Her legs were shaky, but her heart felt like a freed bird. She left the room, passing Chief Rourke, who was now whimpering, asking to call his attorney. Sadie said nothing. She simply walked out into the sun. The return to the Hawthorne estate was like waking from a nightmare and discovering she could still breathe. Caleb's team's black-armored car parked in front of the imposing portico. Sadie stepped out, still in her dirty uniform, feeling the morning sun on her face. The massive door of the estate opened, and a small hurricane ran towards her. "Mommy!" Penny jumped into Sadie's arms with such force that they both nearly fell. Sadie fell to her knees on the stone sidewalk, hugging her daughter, smelling her hair, kissing her face, her hands, crying out everything she had held back in the cell. "Oh, my daughter, my life. Mommy's back. Mommy's here. Nobody will separate us." Caleb stood in the doorway, watching. He wasn't smiling. His jaw was clenched, his eyes welled up, holding back a wave of emotion that almost overwhelmed him. Seeing their reunion confirmed that he had done the right thing, but it also intensified his murderous rage against whoever had caused that pain. Sadie stood up with Penny in her arms and looked at Caleb. "Caleb," she said, her voice choked. "The attorney told me in the car about the video, about the cameras in the teddy bear. You knew. I didn't know when they would attack, Sadie. But I knew they were capable. I installed that to protect you." He came down the steps and stopped in front of her. "Forgive me, I should have stopped you before you got into that patrol car. I should have fought." "You did fight," Sadie said, looking into his eyes. "You got me out of there. You saved my life again." She moved closer and, overcoming the barrier of fear, hugged Caleb, a hug of gratitude, of relief, of survival. Caleb closed his eyes and hugged her back, feeling her body tremble. "It's over, Sadie," he whispered into her hair. "It's over?" She pulled back slightly, fear returning to her eyes. The chief was arrested, but what about Sloane? She'll find out. She'll come back with even more hatred. Caleb looked at his wristwatch. She doesn't know anything yet. Rourke didn't have time to warn her. And she's coming here right now. Sadie's eyes widened, panic chilling her blood. "What? Caleb, we have to get out of here. Let's run. Lock everything." "No," Caleb said with chilling calm. "We are not running. We are not the criminals here. We are going to end this once and for all." He held Sadie's shoulders firmly. "Sadie, I need you to trust me. One more time. Sloane is coming with an ambulance and a plan to have me committed. She thinks I am alone, in a breakdown, desperate over your arrest. She thinks she has won. What do you want to do? I want her to confess." The video caught Rourke, but it didn't catch her giving the orders. "If we don't catch her now red-handed, she will escape and keep pursuing us. We need to cut off the head of the snake. Caleb, this is dangerous. I will be here. The police will be here, hidden. I just need you and Penny to go into the study now and lock the door. There's a one-way mirror there. You will see everything, but she won't see you." Sadie looked at her daughter, then at Caleb. She saw the iron determination in his eyes. That was no longer the blind, bitter man from the first day. He was a warrior, willing to burn the world to protect his family. "All right," Sadie said, wiping away her tears. "We trust you, giant." Caleb kissed Penny's forehead. "Go with Mommy, spy. And remember, complete silence. The witch will fall into her own trap." Sadie and Penny ran to the library. Caleb locked the door from the outside and put the key in his pocket. Then he went to the living room. The stage was set for the final act. He messed up his own hair, leaving it disheveled. He loosened his tie, pulled his shirt out of his pants. He knocked a flower vase to the floor, scattering dirt and glass shards across the Persian rug. He overturned a heavy chair. The mansion needed to look like the scene of a psychotic break. The scene of a man who had lost his mind from pain. He sat on the couch amidst the mess, hugged a cushion, and began to sway his body back and forth, staring into space, practicing his vacant, blind gaze. 5 minutes later, the intercom did not ring. The main gate was opened with the remote control that Sloane still had. A luxury car pulled up outside. Then the heavy sound of a private ambulance maneuvering. Footsteps, high heels clicked on the marble floor with the authority of someone who owned the place, and heavy footsteps of men behind her. The front door burst open. "Caleb!" Sloane's voice echoed through the room, saccharine, feigning exaggerated concern. "Darling, it's me. I've come to help you." Caleb did not respond. He continued swaying, muttering nonsense, staring into the void. Sloane entered the room. She wore an impeccable white dress like a saving angel. Behind her, 2 burly orderlies with straitjackets in their hands and a doctor with a case of sedatives. Sloane stopped. She looked at the mess, the broken vase, the dirt on the floor, and Caleb shattered on the couch. A slow, cruel, victorious smile formed on her red lips. The scene was perfect. The plan had worked better than she expected. "Oh, doctor," she said to the doctor with a theatrical tone of sadness. "Look at his state. He completely lost it after he found out his mistress was a thief. He is aggressive, dangerous, lost in his own darkness." She began to walk toward Caleb like a predator approaching wounded prey. Caleb felt her perfume approaching. He gripped the cushion. His heart pounded, but not from fear, from anticipation. The trap was set, and the rat had just entered the cage. The air in the living room was so heavy it felt hard to breathe. The silence was broken only by Caleb's disconnected murmurs as he swayed on the couch, clutching a cushion, his gaze lost on a blind spot on the wall. Sloane, satisfied with what she saw, stopped in front of him and gave a discreet signal to the doctor accompanying her. "Dr. Thorne," she said, her voice choked, feigning a sadness worthy of a soap opera. "It's much worse than I imagined. He is completely dissociated from reality. That video of the cleaner's arrest must have been the final blow to his fragile mind." The doctor, a short, bald and sweaty man who clutched the sedative case tightly, nodded nervously. He knew it was illegal, but the envelope of money Sloane had given him spoke louder. "The condition is classic, Sloane. Acute traumatic psychosis with infantile regression. He represents an imminent danger to himself and to others. Involuntary commitment is the only humane solution. I already have the paperwork signed. We just need to contain him and administer the sedative." "Do it," Sloane ordered, her voice turning cold as ice. "But be careful. I don't want any visible marks on his face. The judge might want to see him tomorrow at the guardianship hearing." The 2 nurses, hulking figures dressed in white, stepped forward, preparing the restraints. "Wait," Sloane said, raising her hand with perfectly painted blood-red nails. "Let me say goodbye to my fiancé. It might be the last time he hears me with any lucidity before he passes out." She walked to the couch, stepping around the shards of glass from the broken vase with the tip of her designer shoes. She stopped in front of Caleb and crouched down, meeting his eyes. But she did not touch him. The disgust in her gaze was visible. "Caleb?" she called, soft as a serpent's hiss. "My love? Are you listening to me? It's me, Sloane." Caleb stopped swaying for a second. He slowly turned his face toward her. His eyes were empty, unfocused, like two dark wells of pain. "Sloane." His voice came out trembling, broken, childlike. "It's all dark. They're gone. The light is gone." "I know, dear," she whispered, with sardonic pleasure. "The light is gone. But don't worry. You're going to a place where you won't need light. A very quiet place, with white padded walls. You'll rest there forever." You'll take care of everything?" Caleb asked, grabbing her wrist with a trembling, sweaty hand. "The businesses? The house?" Sloane smiled, feeling absolute power course through her veins. "I'll take care of everything, Caleb. You can leave it to me. The first thing I'm going to do is sell this old, damp house that I hate. I'm going to fire all these incompetent employees you protect so much. I'm going to blow through the money you saved your whole life on trips you never got to take because you were busy being blind and miserable." "What about Sadie?" Caleb asked in a desperate whisper, gripping her wrist. "And Penny? You promised you'd help them." The mention of Sadie's name made Sloane's smile twist into a grimace of pure hatred. Jealousy gnawed at her from within. How could that rich man care so much about a nobody? "Help them?" She chuckled, a malicious sound. "Oh, Caleb, you sentimental fool. I'm not going to help that lowlife. I'm going to make sure she rots in jail until she dies. I'm going to make sure that bastard daughter of hers goes to the worst orphanage in the state and is forgotten by the world." "But why, Sloane?" Caleb insisted, his voice taking on a tearful tone. "They didn't do anything. Sadie is good. She's better than you." That sentence was the trigger. Sloane's ego exploded. "Better than me?" Sloane screamed, forgetting the act, forgetting the doctor, forgetting everything. "That cleaner? You compare me to that trash? I am Sloane Montgomery. I am the elite. She is nothing." "She didn't steal," Caleb murmured. "I know she didn't steal." "Of course she didn't steal it," Sloane bellowed, spitting the words in his face, blind with rage. "She's too stupid to steal a diamond like that. It was me, Caleb. I was the one who told Rourke to plant the necklace in her filthy bag. It was easy. All it took was a phone call and a little money, and your saintly little girlfriend's life was over, and you, blind, useless and crazy, couldn't do anything to stop it." The room fell silent for a second after the scream. The confession hung in the air, heavy and irreversible. Caleb remained motionless. "Did you order the evidence planted?" he repeated, his voice now strangely firm without a tremor. "I did, and I'd do it again," Sloane continued, out of control. "I should have had them both run over and killed. It would have been cleaner. But seeing you suffer like this, seeing you break because of that riffraff, is much more entertaining." Sloane tried to pull her arm back, satisfied with the psychological torture, but Caleb's grip locked like a steel handcuff. "Let me go, Caleb. You're hurting me," she complained. "The show's over. Nurses, administer the sedative now." The nurses advanced with the syringe ready, the needle glinting in the room's light. But then the impossible happened. The trembling, tearful, fragile man on the couch vanished. In his place, a wall emerged. Caleb rose in a single, fluid, powerful motion without releasing Sloane's arm. He pulled her up with such force that she stumbled on her heels and nearly fell. "No one touches me!" Caleb's shout was so potent, so charged with authority and contained fury, that the nurses froze in place, startled. The doctor, caught by surprise, let his bag drop to the floor with a thud. Bam! Caleb released Sloane's arm with a firm shove, making her stumble backward until she hit her back against the bookshelf. He ran a hand through his hair, sweeping the disheveled strands from his face. He calmly adjusted his shirt collar. And when he looked at Sloane, his eyes were not empty. They were clear, focused, and burning with the intensity of a judge facing a condemned defendant. What is this?" Sloane stammered, leaning against the bookshelf, her heart pounding erratically. You're having an aggressive outburst. Hold him! He's dangerous!" "I am clearer than ever, Sloane," Caleb said. His voice was calm, icy, 1,000 times more terrifying than his shouts. "And I want to thank you." Sloane blinked, confused and terrified. "Thank me?" "Yes." Caleb slowly pointed to an ornate flower vase on the mantelpiece, directly in front of where they stood. "Do you see that blue vase? Inside it, there's a high-definition camera transmitting live and with audio." Sloane looked at the vase. A tiny red light blinked among the artificial leaves. "The district attorney and Chief Rourke are watching this live stream right now," Caleb continued, relentless. "Rourke's video caught the perpetrator, but proof against the mastermind was missing. Thank you for being so arrogant and jealous as to confess everything out loud." Sloane turned pale. The blood drained from her face. She looked like a ghost. This is a trap." "No, Sloane. This is justice." Caleb smiled, but there was no joy in his smile. "And there's more of an audience." Caleb turned to the study door and said loudly, "You can come out. She has already confessed." The key turned in the lock. Click, the door opened slowly, and out stepped Sadie. Not the cleaner in a dirty uniform with her head down that Sloane had seen dragged away by the police days ago. Sadie had taken a shower, was wearing clean, respectable clothes, and held Penny's hand firmly. But what changed everything was not the clothes. It was her gaze. Sadie looked at Sloane not with fear, but with the moral superiority of someone who had been through hell and returned intact. "You?" Sloane shrieked, hysterical, her eyes almost popping out of their sockets. "What is this fugitive criminal doing here? Call the police. She escaped from jail." "The police are already here, Sloane," Sadie said, her voice firm and serene. "But this time, they didn't come for me." Caleb looked toward the balcony and gave the signal. "Now!" The sound of shattering glass filled the room. The patio doors leading to the grounds were violently thrown open by the federal tactical team. "Federal agents! Hands on your heads! Everyone on the floor!" Chaos erupted. Dr. Thorne tried to run for the kitchen, but was tackled by an agent in a perfect hit. The nurses, realizing the game was up, threw themselves to the floor, hands on their necks, surrendering. Sloane stood frozen in the middle of the room, turning her head from side to side like a cornered animal. She looked at the front door, blocked by agents. She looked at the patio, filled with armed officers. She looked at Caleb and Sadie, standing side by side, united, untouchable. Hatred consumed the little reason she had left. "I'll kill you both," she shrieked, her voice distorted, unrecognizable, animalistic. In a final act of suicidal madness, Sloane grabbed a heavy, pointed metal letter opener that was on the coffee table and charged at Sadie. "Look out!" Caleb shouted. "Mom!" Penny cried out, but Sadie did not back down. Years of scrubbing floors, carrying heavy loads, defending her daughter alone in life, and surviving the hardship of the inner city had given Sadie reflexes and a strength that the socialite Sloane knew nothing about. When Sloane raised her arm to attack, Sadie stepped forward and grabbed the villainess's wrist in midair. The impact was sharp. Sadie did not even blink. She looked into Sloane's insane eyes and twisted her arm with skill and force. Sloane screamed in pain and dropped the object, which clattered to the floor. "Never again," Sadie said, her voice low and dangerous, pushing Sloane back. "Never come near my family again." Sloane fell onto the rug, humiliated, disheveled, defeated by the woman she called trash. 2 federal agents stepped forward and roughly lifted Sloane. "Sloane Montgomery," announced the lead agent, handcuffing her. "You are under arrest for attempted murder, in addition to racketeering, unlawful imprisonment, and malicious prosecution." The cold metal of the handcuffs clicked shut on her wrists, the sound of justice. "No, you don't know who I am," Sloane screamed, struggling. "I'm rich. I'll sue all of you. Caleb, do something. I'm your fiancé. You love me." Caleb walked up to her. He stopped a step away. He looked at the woman who had tortured, deceived, and isolated him for 2 years. And he felt no anger. He felt pity. Pity for someone so poor in spirit that she needed to destroy others to feel like she was somebody. "You are not my fiancé, Sloane," Caleb said calmly. "You are just a sad page in my life that I have just torn out and thrown in the trash." I hate you, you blind fool," she spat the words, her makeup smeared by tears of hatred. "Get her out of here," Caleb ordered, turning his back. Sloane was dragged out of the estate, cursing, losing her shoe on the way. The society lady, left like a common criminal, under the flashes of the press cameras already gathered at the gate, anonymously tipped off by Caleb's attorney. The doctor and nurses were led out right after in single file, and then suddenly the room fell silent. The post-battle silence. That silence where only the breath of those who survived could be heard. Caleb took a deep breath, feeling the clean air enter his lungs for the first time in years. He looked at the destroyed room, broken vases, dirt, overturned furniture. But he had never found that house so beautiful, because in the middle of the mess were Sadie and Penny, alive, free. "Giant!" Penny called in a tiny voice, tugging on his pants. "Is the witch gone for good?" Caleb knelt down, ignoring the broken glass on the floor. He opened his arms. "Forever, my little spy. Forever. And if she tries to come back, we'll kick her out again." Penny ran and threw herself into his embrace. Sadie came right after, and Caleb pulled her in by the waist. The three of them stood there, embracing in the middle of the room, crying and laughing at the same time, in a tangle of arms and relief that nothing could undo. "Thank you," Sadie whispered into his ear, burying her face in his neck. "You kept your promise. You fought for me. I will always fight, Sadie." Caleb kissed her hair. "As long as I live, no one will touch either of you." 1 year later, the Hawthorne estate was unrecognizable. Where before there had been heavy curtains, darkness, and the smell of mildew, now there were open windows, sunlight, and fresh flower arrangements in every corner. Where there had been tomb-like silence, now there was music. The grounds were decorated with colorful balloons, tables with white and yellow tablecloths, and a huge 3-tier cake. It was Penny's 7th birthday. The house was full, not with the rich, fake, high society crowd who frequented Sloane's dinners to gossip behind people's backs, but with real people. Aunt Ruth came from upstate, the neighbors from the old street, the staff of the estate who now worked with smiles and were treated like family. Caleb was at the grill, flipping skewers, wearing a simple polo shirt and shorts, looking 10 years younger and 100 pounds lighter. Sadie crossed the grounds, carrying a tray of chocolate truffles. She wore a light yellow dress, the color Penny said was her laugh. She was radiant. There were no more dark circles under her eyes, no more fear, nor the stooped posture of someone expecting life's next blow. "Hey, birthday girl!" Caleb called out. Penny came running, her face smeared with cake frosting, followed by Bandit, the stray dog they adopted. "What is it, Dad?" The word came out naturally. Dad. At first she called him Big Guy, then Uncle Caleb. Adil, but in recent months, after the formal adoption went through, Dad came, and every time Caleb heard that 3-letter word, he felt like he had won the lottery. "Come here. I have a gift for you. But it's a gift for your mom, too." He signaled to the DJ, the house driver, and the music quieted down. All the guests looked. Caleb picked up the microphone. "Everyone, a moment of your attention, please." Silence fell, filled with knowing smiles. Caleb looked at the crowd, then focused on Sadie, who stood near the cake table, wiping her hands on her apron, blushing. "Many people ask me how I regained my sight," Caleb began, his voice emotional. They talk about the surgery in the States, about the doctors, about the technology. But the truth is, I remained blind after the surgery. I saw things, but I didn't see life. He walked over to Sadie and held her hand in front of everyone. I only truly began to see on the day a cleaner walked into my dark office and covered my legs with a blanket, thinking I was asleep. On the day a little girl gave me a flower and said it was the color of her mother's laughter. Sadie was already crying, smiling through her tears. You saved me from a darkness that medicine cannot cure. You taught me that family isn't blood, it's loyalty. It's who holds your hand when your world falls apart. Caleb reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. It wasn't fancy velvet. It was a small wooden box, hand-carved, simple and timeless. He knelt there, on the grass. Sadie Brooks, will you stop being the woman who cleans my house and become the woman who runs it and rules my heart? Will you marry me? Sadie brought her hands to her mouth, sobbing with happiness. Penny began to jump beside them. Say yes, say yes, say yes, the girl shouted. Sadie laughed. I accept, Caleb. I accept 1,000 times. Caleb stood and placed the ring on her finger, a ring with a yellow stone, citrine, shining like the sun. They kissed to the applause and cheers of the guests. Far from there, justice also had its own form of balance. At the maximum security women's correctional facility, the sun weakly entered through heavy bars. Sloane Montgomery, a former socialite, was on her knees on the rough cement floor of a long corridor. She wore a loose, shapeless grey uniform. Her hair, once perfect, was pulled back into a greasy ponytail. Let's go, Montgomery, the guard yelled, hitting her baton against the wall. This floor is filthy. Scrub it properly. You're no lady here. Sloane dipped the rag into the dirty bucket water. The water was grey and smelled of cheap disinfectant. Her hands, which had never held anything heavier than a designer handbag, were calloused. She scrubbed the floor. The repetitive motion ached in her shoulders. Beside her, another inmate laughed, recognizing her. Look at the irony, huh, Sloane? They say you were arrested for humiliating a cleaner, and now you're the jail's cleaner. What goes around comes around, right? Sloane did not respond. She just scrubbed the floor, paying every cent of her debt, while outside, the family she tried to destroy lived there happily ever after. Did you enjoy this moving story? Do you think Sloane got the punishment she deserved, cleaning the jail floor? Or was it not enough for what she did? What did you think of Caleb's attitude of adopting Penny and forming such a beautiful family? Tell me in the comments. I want to know your opinion. Until the next story.